Thank you for taking the time to view this tutorial. This session will cover the Section 811 program and explain how to apply for funding. In this session, I will provide an overview of the program, including eligible properties and program requirements, and explain how to apply for funding and how you could use Section 811 with the tax credit application. The Section 811 program is a supportive housing program for people with disabilities. The program provides project-based rental assistance for eligible properties, and it works just like the Section 8 program. Tenants pay 30% of their income for rent and utilities. The program pays the difference between the tenant rent and the gross rent, and the rents are limited to 50% AMI and cannot exceed the fair market rent. A major difference in this program when compared with the long-term homeless supportive housing units that many of you are used to is that the owner is not responsible for finding eligible tenants or a service provider. All tenants for the units are referred to the property by a housing coordinator at Minnesota's Department of Human Services, also known as DHS, who manages the waiting list for all Section 811 units. Services are provided by local service providers. The eligible tenants for the Section 811 program are disabled adults between the ages of 18 and 62. And who are extremely low income. They must be either long-term homeless with a serious mental illness and working with a project for assistance in transition from homelessness or PATH program, or exiting an institution like a nursing home and participating in the Money Follows the Person program. As I mentioned in the last slide, DHS will provide all of the tenant referrals from the program waiting list. Properties that are eligible for Section 811 are multifamily buildings with 5 or more units that are applying for capital financing in the 2017 RFP. The types of units needed are 0 and 1 bedroom units. No more than 25% of units can be set aside for people with disabilities, and that includes any long-term homeless supportive housing units. The Section 811 units should be dispersed throughout the property and not restricted to a certain part of the building. Also, a portion of the units should be accessible for people with mobility impairments. The property should be located in an area with easy access to transportation, services, and community amenities. The Section 811 program guide has a list of the cities and counties that DHS has determined have a need for units for the population to be served. Also, the owner or management agent must have experience administering Section 8. Selected owners will enter into a 20-year rental assistant contract, also known as a RAC, and a 30-year use agreement will be recorded for the property. The initial contract will provide 5 years of funding with annual renewals after that. Ongoing funding will depend on federal appropriations. The property management agent will use tracks to submit tenant vouchers for payments and use the EIV system for income verification. The owner is expected to conduct annual physical condition standards, also known as UPCS inspections, and Minnesota Housing will conduct inspections at least once every 3 years. The properties must also meet HUD's environmental requirements, which will be done through our standard environmental review process. To apply for Section 811 funding, a pre-application is required before the Consolidated Multifamily RFP application deadline. The pre-application is due May 1st and includes a brief narrative, a few sections of the workbook, and a statement of known environmental issues. On the workbook, you will need to indicate that you are applying for Section 811 PRA on the Funding Request tab. Instructions for completing the relevant sections of the workbook are provided with the pre-application information. Minnesota Housing staff will review the pre-application and notify you of your eligibility for the program by Tuesday, May 16th. This can help you determine your options for rental assistance for the development and decide if you want to take points for people with disabilities on the tax credit score sheet. The RFP and tax credit applications are due June 15th. For tax credit applications, the Section 811 rental assistance can be used for units that will be set aside and rented to people with disabilities. Developers may consider taking the points for people with disabilities under the greatest need, tenant, and affordability targeting section on the tax credit score sheet for the proposed Section 811 units. If the points are taken, the people with disabilities restriction will be recorded in the tax credit legal documents. Minnesota Housing will write release valve language similar to what the agency writes for long-term homeless or LTH units. Owners will be released from the requirement if the Section 811 PRA funding goes away. To receive the people with disabilities points, you will need to complete the application narrative and have a service agreement with a service entity, either the county or tribal human services office or a designated service provider, outlining how outreach, referral, and services will be provided. The narrative for people with disabilities can also function as a service agreement. If the service entity has any questions about the Section 811 program, they can contact one of our staff for more information. An important point to remember is that Section 811 PRA can't be used for any of the LTH units in your application. They are totally separate. Also, you will not be able to take points for secured rental assistance for these units, since selection for Section 811 rental assistance will be determined through the RFP selection process. For more information about the Section 811 program, please visit the 811 PRA program page on our website. On that page, you can find the Section 811 program guide, as well as HUD regulations and the templates for the rental assistance contract, the use agreement, and the model lease. And, as always, please contact us with your questions. Thank you once again for taking time to view this tutorial.